In chapter 12 of Genesis, we see that God's covenant family continues to grow, now through a tribal chieftain, Abram, and his entire clan, including servants, shepherds, and various dependents. With humanity scattered across the earth after the fall of the Tower of Babel, God calls upon one man, Abram, from the line of Shem. The call requires Abram, at 75 years of age, and his barren wife Sarai to leave their relatives and homeland and journey to a new land that God has yet to make known. This call of God for Abram to leave his homeland is matched by a triple promise to make Abram a nation, name, and universal blessing. This promise becomes a covenant, as God will later swear an oath to deliver these promises. Abram is told to leave behind his kindred. However, he takes his nephew Lot, the son of his brother Haran, as an insurance policy, a surrogate son, as both he and his wife were barren. From a human point of view, Abraham thinks that land and riches would be of no use without an heir. However, Abram's lack of faith in his fertility, based on God's promise, is matched by God's restraint of the land's fertility. Because of the barren land, Abram abandons the promised land and moves to Egypt. Abram and his wife struggle with life in Egypt, and only after God steps in through a series of plagues do Abram and Sarai leave Egypt and return to the promised land. However, with the time spent in Egypt, Abram and Lot find that the promised land cannot support their large herds and servants, so they must separate. With this separation, God's command to Abram to leave his kindred behind is fulfilled, and God's blessings can begin. Abram reflected the threefold office, the munus triplex of Christ, as priest, prophet, and king. Abraham reflects Christ's priestly office in sacrificing his human heir, Lot. In a similar way, God sacrificed his son so that the gates of heaven would be opened. As a prophet, Abraham foretold of the promised land, which is a prefigurement of Jesus, as we await to enter into heaven, the eternal promised land, by living in Christ. Finally, Abraham's kingly office is fulfilled as a tribal chieftain, bringing together many tribes, to lead people towards God. So too, Christ, in coming to preach the good news, was the person to bring all the nations to the knowledge of the truth. Reflecting on the life of Abraham, we may realize that knowledge of the world, common sense, experience, and human means all have their importance. But Abraham learned to trust in the goodness, the wisdom, and the omnipotence of God. So this passage of the Bible may help us to realize that if our vision remains stuck on the plane of human prudence, our perception of reality may be false and incomplete, since we would not be trusting God's words before the strength of our own works. So perhaps the inspiration we can take from studying this passage of the Bible could be to realize that the difficulties in life are never the final word, because God always fulfills his promises.